Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This week is pretty special. We're talking about Lake Fork. Bassmaster Elite Series just finished visiting there. Had a near record weight on the final day. Lee Livesey caught 42 pounds, pretty unbelievable. I'm going to dive into a little bit about that lake and how I approached it and a few things that I did in this week's video. Be sure and subscribe and turn on your notification bell. Thanks.
It's time to rise up, riding high, ain't nothing gonna hold me back. Now I'm on the move, got nothing to lose, like a freight train off the tracks. Come on up the mountain.
So Lake Fork is probably one of my favorite lakes in the country. Spent a lot of time there. Actually spent a little time guiding there a few years back. It's one of those places that's special because it really truly is one of the only places that you can visit that you have the potential to catch a 10-pound double digit or just a fish of a lifetime. You know, a lot of people, to me, a fish of a lifetime is a 7 to 10 pounder, and every time we visited that lake in one of the Elite Series events, I've caught a 7+ pound fish, and it just makes it special when you can go to a fishery and have a chance at fish like that. This particular week, we visited the lake in the end of April. To me, my mind was clouded with the whole bed fishing thing, and I kind of missed the shad spawn deal, you know, the big gizzards. Everybody saw Lee Livesey catch 42 pounds on a spook. That's pretty cool. That's something that doesn't happen very often. I missed that, but Lee is one of the best fishermen on that lake, and he dialed that in. It's all week, but especially that final day. And for me, I love to bed fish, and everybody knows that, and everybody knows that I've done well bed fishing, and I wanted to do that at Lake Fork. Not very often do we have a tournament of that scale where I can go to that lake at that time of year and actually fish for fish that are spawning that I can visibly see. And it was pretty special. It was a cool week even for myself. First day I caught 24 pounds, but what you'll see in my video that'll be coming up, Days of an Elite, that's coming up soon, I caught a 6-pounder, my biggest fish, on my last cast of the day on day one. So that was a huge catch, a huge cull for that first day. Put me in a good position. There was a lot of good bags, but as always, weather changes, things happen that can make a tournament a little more challenging on a different day. Day two was just that. I went back to a lot of those bed fish. They were gone, but I did end up finding a big one, and I'd saw this fish the first day, but I couldn't get it to bite. So on day two, I'd kind of piddled around, didn't have a very good bag at all. It was really tough on me, and I went back to that fish with a few minutes to go, was able to catch it, and it was like a 7.6 or 7.4, something like that. So that anchored my day two weight of 18 pounds and some change. But it's still, I still saw enough that I thought the beds would be capable of producing another mid to upper 20-pound bag. And I actually saw a couple that I thought were 8 to 10 pounders that had just got there, just fresh moved up fish. But as always, we got a front that came through on day two late, and it stormed and rained quite a bit. I don't know exactly how much, but it rained a lot. And what that does is it makes those bedfish leery, scared, they back out. I'm not sure why it does that, but anytime you have thunder, lightning, and a lot of heavy rain, a lot of times those bigger bedfish will, one, get done spawning quick and get out of there, or two, they just back off the bed. And I think that's a lot of what happened to me after day two going into day three. Was able to make the top 50 cut, top 49 cut, sitting in 11th place, which was right where I needed to be. All I needed to do was go catch a big bag, and I could have made the top 10 for day four. But day three turned out to be a really, really hard challenge for me. Day three, I actually started out trying to fish the shad spawn deals, throwing a Smithwick Rogue, throwing the old big one that I really enjoy throwing. I've got a few that I custom painted that really suit that style of points, fishing on those bigger points, those longer, tapered, skinny, shallow points, what I call them. Throwing it on 15-pound Seagar and Vizex and keeping that bait up real high. I was able to catch a couple fish doing that the first 2 days. But day 3, it didn't work, and I spent probably 2.5 hours trying to make that work and just couldn't get it going. So I ended up going back to the beds thinking that, well, it was going to be sunny on day 3, so I thought, well, man, it's going to work out good. I'll be able to find a couple big ones. Some of those that I'd found might be still there. Turns out they were all gone. Ended up catching what I caught off beds. Only managed to catch 13 or 14 pounds, something like that. It was a really tough day for me there. Just didn't find the quality fish that I needed. Ended up catching my fish the last day on the frog. I've got my 2 main setups right here that I want to show you and go through. But before I do that, to kind of finish up talking about Lake Fork, because it's such a special fishery and it's got such a history. And we've been there several times now, and there's a few things that always work. In April, you can always bed fish. The shad spawn deal happened a little quicker than I thought it would, but it turned out to be the winning deal, and I just missed that this time around. But one other thing that seems to always work there when you have the lake's up, it's good and full, is the frog. And that's one thing that I threw on the final day, on day 3 for me, was I was throwing the Booyah Poppin' Pad Crasher. It's my favorite color. This is shad frog. To me, it just imitates those shad that are feeding and spawning in those bays and pockets. There was a lot of little shad that were spawning in those pockets, not necessarily out on the bank or out on the points, but they're spawning up in that grass. And I was able to throw this over those open holes of the grass and catch those fish. Some of them were spawning, some of them were just feeding on the shad. Throwing it on an 8 1-to-1 H2O Express reel, the new TAC 40 rod. This is the 7-1 heavy. To me, this is a really good rod. It's got a good soft tip to it, but it still has enough backbone. When you're making short, accurate casts, this is the one I'm going to go with. It's a little shorter. I don't recommend this rod if you're going to be bombing it way back in the stuff, but for those short casts, pitching it in real tight cover, things like that, it worked great for me this week. Throwing it on 50-pound Seagar Smackdown braid. Shad frog's a really good option. Anytime you're in that spawn to post-spawn time of year, it'll get you a lot of bites. One of the main players this week for me, though, was the Yum Christie Crawl. You can see there, this is the same setup that I throw most all the time for bed fishing. I've got a 4/0 EWG Superline Gamakatsu 3/8 ounce sinker. Just throwing white, dipping the head in red like I always do. It seemed to work. Throwing it on 25-pound, this is Seagar and Vizex. To me, 25-pound just gives me that confidence, especially down there at Fork, throwing it in and around heavy cover, stumps, things like that, the grass, and catching bigs. I mean, when you're catching giant bass, you want to have something that you can really pull those fish out of. Another thing, too, that was critical this week was having the right rod. This is a 7.3 heavy. This is an Ethos HD rod. This is a great all-around bed fishing rod for me. It's a really good, stiff, heavy action rod. Again, with that big line, I'm trying to wrestle those fish out. So I use this one a lot for frogging as well. Most of the time when I'm frogging, this is the rod I throw. But for the shorter cast this week, I opted for the 7-1, the new TAC 40. Again, that's a 8 1-to-1 gear ratio reel, just so I can pick up a lot of line in a hurry. One other bait that I threw this week that was not the white bait. I did throw a watermelon Christie Crawl, some watermelon red actually, but I also threw the Bad Mama. And the Bad Mama is just a beaver style bait. It got a lot of bites, and I think one thing that really works with that bait is it looks like a bluegill. It's got that bluegill profile in the water. Caught a few key fish on that throughout the week. Same setup, 3/8 ounce sinker, 25-pound test line. And I feel like for me, I'm happy with that. Ended up 26th after my tough day 3. It was a struggle, but I had an enjoyable week, and sometimes that's what it's about. I was able to fish to my strengths the way I like to fish, which is throw a frog and bed fish and go down the bank and cover a lot of water. There was guys that still caught them on day 3 off beds. So I know I made a mistake, whether that be trying to fish for fish that were not going to be there, or I should have just covered more water going down the bank. I know a couple big ones that were caught pretty close to me on that day 3. So day 3 just didn't work out. I'm not sure really what's going on with me in day 3s this year. I've had a lot of opportunities already for the 2021 season to have some really strong finishes, making day 3 cuts and not being able to close it out on day 3. It's frustrating, but that's part of the game we play. Again, you know, it was a tournament that I really enjoyed. You know, I can't complain at all. I really, really like fishing Lake Fork. Up next is Neely Henry. I've never been there. It's in Alabama. It's Coosa River, spotted bass, largemouth. It's coming up quick, so we got to get prepared for that. Still kind of late spawn, pre-spawn, or post-spawn, so kind of have to kind of feel it out, see what's going on there. But special thanks to all the sponsors, everybody that takes care of me and keeps me out here on the water. Again, Booyah Poppin' Pad Crasher and the Young Christy Crawl got the bites. Be sure to check out the new line of rods. We're going to have a full video coming soon. As soon as we can get all of them lined up, get everything together, we're going to give you a full rundown of the rods that I got to help design for H2O Express and the new TAC 40 lineup. These rods are really, really special, and $100 price tag. You can't beat that. Got the right actions. Everything is right about these rods. So be sure and check those out at your local academy. And appreciate you following along, guys. We still got a long ways to go. We're sitting okay for Angler of the Year. Need to have a couple strong tournaments. I mean, this is that time of year where you really need to start setting yourself up to finish the year strong. So looking forward to the rest of the season. A couple more tournaments down south. Then we have the Classic over in Texas. That's going to be an interesting week. So never been there either. So I'm looking forward to that one. And then we go back up north to finish out in New York. So still got a lot of stuff coming down the pipe. Got some more videos for you guys coming soon. So I appreciate you following along, and hey, thanks for the support.